So hello guys, greetings from GMATWhiz, and I welcome you all to this today's interview with Aryamika. So in today's session is going to be extremely unique and very insightful. To answer that question, why? Because we get asked this question a lot, that can we move to that low 600s to the higher band of 700s, right? And then apart from the anxiety of this question, the one thing that lies in there is the fear, right? Are we being overly optimistic in targeting such a score, especially given that we are at low 600s already? Are we being overly ambitious, right? So we're going to answer all these questions and much more. So stay tuned to the very end, because this session is going to cover the how as well as the what aspect of scoring a 700, right? So great. Thank you, Aryamika, for joining us in the session. And um so I welcome you to the session. And can we, so let's begin from the very first thought. So let's say you had that 620 already at your hand, right? So
Yeah.
how did you feel before the exam when you were going for the exam, right? Okay, I already had a 620 and I'm targeting this 740, but then you actually caught it. So what was that? How did you feel in that period?
I think before the exam, the mindset I went in was that it is a very hard test. I have to know my things, but at this point, I know everything I'm gonna know. What I need to control is my emotions, my strategy, all of that. So that was my focus going in, and I just went in with tunnel vision. I was like, I have to get this score. There's like no other way. I'm gonna fight for it. I had set a 730 goal. And then I went in and I was like, it's just 2 hours. I have to give it my all. I'm gonna give it. I just went in with a very positive attitude. This was the second time I'd gone. The first time
Mhm.
I got a 710 and then I retook the test. So this time, I was a little more prepared. I was a little more less anxious about it. And I think that made the world of the difference, a world of the difference. Yeah.
Sounds great. Sounds great. So we're going to know, definitely we're going to know more about that confidence, how it got into you, right? So before
Mhm.
moving into that part, when you got a 620, what did you analyze that, what you need to change?
Yeah, so definitely 620 was my diagnostic score pretty early on. At that point, I didn't even really have a good understanding of what GMAT was, what it entailed. I just knew the breakup. It's quant, verbal, IR, AWA. But then eventually, I started looking at more resources. I found GMATWhiz, and just that I don't think I would have been able to do it myself. That intro that GMATWhiz gave you, for someone like me, I didn't know much going into the GMAT about the GMAT at all. And then I didn't even know that there was a pattern to look at in my mistakes and any of that. I was just like, okay, I'll study from the official guide from the textbook and it'll be fine. Obviously, that wasn't the way to go about it. And I could have like really condensed my studying time had I just come to GMATWhiz at the start itself. The I would say the time that I really started reflecting on what I had to change on my strategy was when I started GMATWhiz, because then I got an understanding, okay, in quant, this is how it's broken up. In verbal, this is how it's broken up. And these are the things I need to focus on. It's not just learning content or mugging content like we're used to. It's about logic, which is what I really didn't get until I started GMATWhiz.
Great, great point. So we're going to come back to that point. How were you able to condense your preparation time with GMAT-Quiz? But before that, I want to know, how did you even, got to know about us? How did you reach out to us?
Yeah, so I was
Let
on
me, sorry, let me cut you out over there. Please also, while you're answering this question, also please mention, how did you narrow it down to GMAT-Quiz? Like, why was this your choice? Yes.
Of course. So I started just looking at lots of different GMAT prep companies online on GMAT Club, like lots of different resources. And I saw all of the, oh, this many 700s, that many this thing, this, that. And that was great, but it didn't feel, I don't know, I just didn't feel personally drawn to any of those companies. And I knew that like the way I studied, I needed a very tailored approach. I can't do like then at that point, if it's just going to be one set program for everyone, then I might as well study from the textbook because I love like reading and learning and stuff. So that's not an issue for me. The key thing was the tailored approach. And then I saw GMATWhiz's reviews and stuff, and obviously I saw the great results. But then what really got me was the AI technology. I think that obviously I was right to go with that because it was so helpful for me. But that is something that really differentiated GMATWhiz from everyone else. And it was also that I was trying out different things, so I didn't want to put in spend too much money on something for it to not be helpful and then go into something else. But like feel like technology is something you can always rely on, and that's the first thing that pushed me towards GMATWhiz. And then when I started, everything was just so easy to use, easy to understand for someone that just didn't know where to start at all. And the videos, everything was just it was like you can increase the speed to 2x if it's something you already know, or there's short videos and there's different markers. So if you know one chunk of the video, you can skip it, do it. It was just so easy to personalize the course to my own needs. And yeah, that's something that I tried out different courses and I didn't find that with others. So
Great. Sounds good. Sounds good. So I think you have noticed quite the, even the minor things that we have brought out into the, we have taken care of in perspective of user experience. So that's good to know. So coming back to one of the points that you mentioned in the earlier part of the conversation as well, which was about condensing your preparation time. So can you, tell us a bit more about it?
yeah, sure. So my GMAT journey was what to me felt like a very long one. I know GMAT journeys go from 5 years to whatever, but just juggling work with GMAT was very stressful for me. But so when I started, like I said, I was all over the place. I just ordered the OG books. I thought, let me just go through those, check it out. That wasn't working out. Then I tried out like few different free trials and stuff, and I didn't really find the right resource for me. And then I think it was it had already been around like 4 or 5 months by then that I was just trying to do things. I also at that point, one mistake I made was that I wasted a lot of my OG tests that I bought very
Believe that.
early on. But that's something I would advise against doing. OG tests were just so helpful. So please leave it to a little bit towards the end, mid phase of your studying, because I wasted a lot of my exams. Yeah, so I was basically, as you can see, I was a mess the first 4 or 5 months of my GMAT studying. And then I found GMATWhiz. What I needed, like I felt like I had the discipline. I knew, okay, I'm going to set aside 2 or 3 hours a day to study no matter what. So that I had. What I needed was structure. I didn't I didn't have any structure in my studying. I didn't know what to do. When I was studying quant, I was thinking about verbal. Oh my God, I should be studying verbal. And when I was studying verbal, I was thinking about quant. So I wasn't really focusing on anything well. And then I found GMATWhiz, and GMATWhiz, they had the questionnaire and what your goal is and all of that. So that was really helpful because their technology really understood what I wanted, where I was weak at already without me even starting or doing anything. And then I started the course, and it's just broken down into little topics and easy chunks. So it's not overwhelming. When I started, it was just like this big chunk of quant and big chunk of verbal, and I didn't know where to start and I didn't know what to do. And GMAT's so overwhelming, but GMATWhiz kind of broke it down into little things. So I was like, okay, today I'm just going to focus on one small part of number properties. Tomorrow I'm going to focus on one small part of verbal, so of RC or whatever, so just having GMATWhiz break it down into that, then create a calendar. I work really well with the calendar because I like checking things off and knowing what I'm going to do for the day. They created the calendar, they did all of that for me. So I wasn't wasting any time scheduling what I wanted to study or trying to think about, oh my God, I should do this today because this makes sense. Like arriving at that conclusion, that was all done by GMATWhiz. All I needed to do was sit at my desk, pull up my pen and paper, whatever you use to study, and get to studying. That's it. Everything else was taken care of. So that, I think, was one major aspect of what condensed my study time. And I think I personally am a very anxious person. That was all of my mentors and everyone at GMAT was like, your stuff, just calm down because that's what's going to ruin the test for you. So even while studying, I would be like, am I studying right? Am I studying wrong? Like, I needed guidance essentially, and GMATWhiz gave me all the guidance. I eventually reached out for tutoring and stuff too, but even before that, even just with the platform, with the mentors, I was getting so much guidance that I I felt very supported, I think, and that's what gave me. I know you might ask this in another question, but that was a very important part of what gave me confidence, that I'm on the right track. That's all I needed to know.
That makes sense. So look, planning is planning is indeed one of the most important points, because if you plan in advance, actually I think 50 to 60% of the job is done, right? So all you've got to do is now execute that plan in the most rightest way possible, right? But if you don't plan, uh, I don't know where because you won't even know where you're heading on to, right? So first we need to plan and then we move on to that path. That does sound good. So let's come back to that point wherein you mentioned about proper guidance, right? Because to execute that plan, you definitely need to ensure that the plan that you have made and the plan you are working, you're following is working for you, right? Because it becomes, when you're in that practicing mindset, in that preparing mindset, it becomes difficult to get out of your own headspace and analyze yourself too objectively, right? And that's when you need, indeed you need a mindset which is outside of that preparation phase, and who can assess you objectively, right? And
Mhm.
course correct, or at least tell you, right, that you're doing right. So that also, even if you're going right, then it also builds up the confidence, right? So let's get into that part also of the mentorship, which you have also defined, right? So let's get deep into it. How did mentorship help you, and how did our mentors guide you in that process?
Of course, mentorship was so helpful. Firstly, I want to say thank you to my mentors. I have annoyed them so much, sent them so many messages. But that was one of the big things for me in terms of studying. I was getting everything I needed from the platform, but then just having that human connection, that we can get on a call, we can discuss things outside of the platform, that was very helpful. There were certain things like, if I was really weak at a topic and I had exhausted everything that was on the platform, including the whiz quizzes and the videos and the booster files and everything, then especially for Quant, which was my weaker part of the GMAT, I would reach out to Sartaj and say, is there any other resource I can use? What should I focus on? I'm done with this, but my accuracy and my speed is still very bad in this. She would tell me exactly, here, do 20 questions from here, do 10 questions from these. I'm going to give you a question bank. I'm going to help you with this. I'm going to give you this account and that account. And they really went above and beyond. And even for verbal, RC was definitely really tough for me at the start. So I focused on that a lot. Shreyas was my mentor. He helped me chart out everything, what I need to do, what I don't need to do, and what I should focus on. And I did one RC session with him. And after that one session, in my actual exam, my RC accuracy was 100%. So that was a huge bump because I was getting a lot wrong in RC, and just understanding that technique, just what I need to do, having confidence. What there was so many things that went into it that Shreyas really like guided me through and tailored the approach to what I was doing wrong. Um, Another thing that the mentors that really helped me, like I told you, I love writing the things out for the day and like working in a very organized way. And Shreyas went above and beyond to even create an Excel spreadsheet saying, okay, this is how much you do. Don't do more than this. Because my problem was doing too much and then exhausting myself. And just having that guidance from, the mentors that have been through this so many times, done this themselves, trained students, just going to them anytime I had a doubt was so helpful.
Great to know, because yeah, one point to add in over there would be that is good to have, because if you have the right guidance, plus along with that, if you have those mentors guiding you also in terms of practical approach, right, that is what actually turns around the whole story, right? So good to hear that the team is working this so much hard with the aspirants. So one thing that you mentioned was in the RC section, right, that your accuracy all surged up or spiked up to 100%. So we all would love to know what happened in that session, right? So some points that you might be able to describe. Okay, what did you change in your RC approach back then?
Yeah, definitely. So, one of the RC questions that I really struggled with was what is the author trying to say, or the overall message and things like that. So, the help that I got was how to read the passage, and I had gone through that in the videos and stuff, but I think it just never stuck with me. And having that session helped so much because we went through my mistakes. We went through identifying, maybe I'm reading this too fast, or maybe I'm not understanding the actual message of the paragraph or what the author is trying to say. So we went through a few passages. He made me read it out loud and then say what I understood from it. We tested my speed, we tested my understanding. um, we tested a lot of different things, and then it came down to I was getting confused between two options. And then I was given a really good strategy, is that if I'm confused between two options, I'm I'm on a time limit. Like I can't just keep rereading and wasting time. I go with the option that's 1% closer. Just it has to be is 1% closer to what the question is asking. Go with your instinct, go with your gut. That really helped because in my head, every time I read it, I was looking for a clear choice. I was like, this, I have to make sure that this is the answer. I never went with the approach that all it has to be is 1% closer, because they're trying to trick you. They are trying to make you think, this might be it, this might be
Right.
that. So understanding that, having that approach, and just really reading it like I'm talking to the author. I'm trying to get what he's trying to say. That was very, very helpful.
Okay. So creating that storyline in your head so that by
Hmm.
the end of the passage, many people lose the track of the information. So if you don't create that storyline in your mind, it's not worth going through that passage, right? Because by the end of it, you should know exactly what the author is trying to say. Where did he start from, right? Where did he pivot in between, and then what did he, maybe draw the conclusion or the facts he cited in the end. So that storyline is extremely important. Well said in that. Apart from that, one good thing that you mentioned about was option analysis, right? So knowing what is wrong is also important, along with knowing what is right, right? Because that is what is
Yeah.
going to help you and boost your confidence in the actual exam. Well said in that, Aryamika. Thanks for sharing such beautiful insights. Also, Aryamika, if we move on to the, if you take a detour onto this part towards the Quant section, so I think that proved to be a pivotal point in your in scoring 740, right? Because of which you got a 120-point improvement, I think. So, how
Mhm.
much was your score in Quant? It was,
49.
and back then, before that, in
Before
620?
that, I believe it was about 35 or
35.
30.
So that's a humongous improvement. That's like 14 points straight jump to the quant score.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what did happen? What happened in there? So what were you doing wrong earlier, and how did you improve in there?
For quant, my major thing setting out was timing. I was spending 5 to 6 minutes on a question that was even not that hard. So just training myself for that timing, understanding that I'm in a time test. It's all about strategy. It's all about playing the long game. Like I have to finish the section. So a big thing for my why my timing was slow, because my just the basics weren't there at all. I'd forgotten a lot of different things. So going through the GMATWhiz concepts and understanding, what I do know, kind of what I don't know, that, I should focus more on certain topics, areas. So I started doing that. And then I was mainly like, I think for one whole month or like even more, I was just doing the basics. I was getting my foundation down because it was very weak going in. And then after my foundation was done, then I started looking at application, which is also a way that GMATWhiz tells you to start out. First build your skills, then focus on application. Then I was focusing on the GMAT style questions and how to apply the skills that I've gained in a GMAT style question. And I was doing those untimed. And then once I was getting those right, then I started focusing on my time and understanding where I'm taking more time, and then practicing more of those questions with time. So that was something, taking those steps first, building, not just directly getting scared and then being like, I have to solve everything in the certain amount of time because that's what the test requires. I think going step by step, understanding where you're weak, getting that knowledge down, then focusing on application, then focusing on time, the time will come, I think. And another thing for this that was really, really helpful for me, which I was given access to by the GMATWhiz team, was the GMAT club tests. That was because those tests are so hard and it's really difficult to complete them. Once I felt confident with my ability with like OG questions, GMATWhiz questions, I moved on to the GMAT club tests and I would take those timed. I didn't focus much on the score. I focused more on the timing and my post-test analysis, because they offer a lot of good strategies, which I think was just really, really helpful. The test itself is, I would say, much harder than the actual test, but the insights that they offer are the insights that you need to crack the actual test.
Mhm.
So that was a big part of my quant journey, doing those GMAT club tests, and then not just doing them, but analyzing them. There were days that I would do nothing but except do one test and then spend like 2 hours analyzing what
Analyzing.
went wrong. Yeah.
Great. So one good point that you mentioned at the start was like lack of fundamental clarity in the concepts, right? So that conceptual understanding is extremely important, because many people, when we speak to them, they say that, okay, I'm able to solve these questions in like 3-4 minutes or maybe 5 minutes, but I don't know where I'm going wrong. I'm not able to improve. So look, they fail to understand that to solve a particular question, there can be a number of methods. There can be a number of approach, right? But what is going to work and when, that decision making is what we need to inculcate in ourselves, and that will come only when we have that clarity in our fundamental understanding of those concepts, right? And from these the strategy is devised, right, for a particular question. So good to know that you first worked on these, developing these skills without the, without timing yourself, because if you don't know the approach, the question is, what are you timing, right? So you need to time that approach, the process in itself, right? So if you don't know that, then the question is on it, on your own abilities, what are you in fact timing, right? So you should question that first. So good to know that you worked on that part right from the very start. um, Great. So if you move on to the, we've come back to the verbal section. Let's discuss, about sentence correction. So what was the approach that you followed in there?
Sure. So for sentence correction, I think where I made a mistake at first is that I thought, okay, I read quite a bit, this and that, sentence correction won't really be a problem for me. And I didn't give it the focus that I needed to give it. I'm guilty of rushing through the sentence correction part and the GMATWhiz because I was like, okay, I should focus on something else. That was a massive, massive mistake because then I kept going back to it. When I started solving GMAT sentence correction questions, I realized that there are so many little tricks, little things that you can't rely on your ear for. Like, even if English is your first language, whatever, you need to know what kind of things they test you on, certain grammar rules, certain ways of communicating. Like, there's just different things, like they'll say, oh, it's not concise enough and things like that, and those things were just not making sense in my head at all. And I was like, this is really hard to understand. Like, I get it now, but if another question comes, I'll still be as confused. And then I realized it's because I rushed through the basics. I went back to it. I went through some things I did feel like I knew, but then a lot of things I spent time on. Like, again, it all goes back to the foundation. I spent time on the foundation, and then my accuracy really skyrocketed. So one piece of advice I would give is that even if you are a reader, even if English is your first language, please go back to the basics in sentence correction. Maybe not all the way to the basics, but they are trying to test you, they are trying to trick you. So something might sound right but might not be right, and for that level, if you want to go up to the above the 90th percentile, if that's what your aim is, then that's something that you need to focus on.
Okay. So in the course that you mentioned about the sentence correction, wherein you work on your basics, so in there I think instructors teach you about and the lectures they teach you about the meaning based approach, right? How to analyze things more meaningfully and more logically, right? So what did you learn over there? How did your thought process change using that approach?
Yeah, I think so one thing that was really helpful was kind of, I would read the whole sentence and
In one
then
go.
kind of, yeah, in one go, and not really gain an understanding of like what it
Mhm.
was trying to say, what the different parts were. One thing in the meaning-based approach that was taught was to break it down into little chunks, understand it before moving on to the next thing. And this applied to CR as well. But even for a long sentence and sentence correction, that was really helpful. And I just think that that helped understand what the sentence was trying to say as a whole. If the different parts didn't fit, like, there's so much to it that goes beyond grammar and subject
Mm.
verb agreement and things like that. So for that extra step, the meaning based approach was really, really helpful for me. And I think that's actually the thing that really helped my accuracy go up in sentence correction.
Okay, so this also leads us to one of the last parts in the GMAT verbal module. So you also and you also mentioned in one of your last sentences about meaning-based approach helping you out in critical reasoning, right? So let's discuss the two aspects of critical reasoning which are in fact tested. One of them being the comprehension part, and one of them being the analysis part, right? And you mentioned about the comprehension part that this meaning-based approach help you out in there as well. So we'll discuss a brief about that, right? And then we can delve into the analysis part, like what was the pre-thinking approach, or how did you
Mhm.
use that, how did you change, what changed your thought process and approach
Yeah.
and the strategy towards your critical reasoning questions.
Yeah, sure. So critical reasoning was another part where timing was not my strength. I know I'm saying that for everything, but I was slow at a lot of things. It took me a while to get the timing right.
No, in
But it
fact,
was,
yeah, sorry,
yeah,
sorry to cut you out, because look, timing issue is one thing that persists in all the cases when your strategy is not fine, right? Because when strategy is not there, when the approach is not there, we try to struggle to make our way out through that puzzle or the question that we have, right? And to make out our way through that question, we need to have the right strategy, and that strategy is pegged on the fundamental understanding of those concepts itself, right? So that is quite a chain, right? So whenever you're facing timing, you have to work on your approach.
That's true. That's very, very true. And that's exactly even for CR. I was reading the whole passage. I was going through it very fast in like 5 to 10 seconds, hoping I would save time. Then I would read the question, read the answers, go back to the passage because I was like, nothing's clicking for me. And I was in fact wasting so much time. So in that panic to save time, I was not using a good strategy, as you said, and then I was wasting time. So for CR, what was really helpful was understanding that I should take it bit by bit, not move on until I fully understand what that bit is trying to say, and then see it as a whole and just fully understand it, and it to the level where I don't even have to go back to it. And that takes time. It definitely, to shift your mindset, to shift your understanding, to go that way, it does take time. And I would say just trust the process, because I was also very skeptical about it. I was like, this is taking way too much time when I first started approaching it that way. But just keep doing it, because it was the most helpful thing ever. I did get to the point where I read it in a certain way that I understood the meaning, I understood the essence. I didn't have to go back to the passage. And not for all questions, but for some questions, I could even pre think. And after reading the question, I could come up with one or two things that, that could be the answer. And in a lot of cases, those weren't the answers, but that helped me arrive at the right answer because it was in that area. And in some cases, that was even the answer. So it just reduced my time so significantly. But it does take a good amount of practice to get to that level. That I would say, do it, follow that approach, break it down into chunks, understand the meaning, pre-think where necessary or where it's easy to do. Don't waste too much time on it. But understanding the passage really helped me a lot.
Okay. And one good point that you mentioned in between was that practicing. And most of the people, they mistake, they mistakenly understand this information the wrong way. So when we say practice, it's more about practicing the approach, the process, rather than practicing the questions per se, right? And they focus more on the passive side of the practicing, where we only focus on practicing questions. We set the daily targets. You're going to solve maybe 20, 30, 40 questions per day. That does not help. What helps you more is practicing that approach consciously, right? So even if you practice 10 questions per day, even that is fine, right? But then we should know the in and out of that question, the solution part, right? So that is more important. That active preparation is what will take you there, rather than that passive practicing towards the GMAT preparation. So good to hear such good, that's such insightful things from you, Aryamika. I think finally we are at the end of this session, and I think that's where we can ask you this question. So what do you think would be some points to keep in mind while we are actually in that exam mode? Because what has happened over the period has happened. We have prepared for it well, right? And we have followed this approach. Now what points should I take care of? And this becomes a sensitive question, especially for people who have already given their exam, right? And they are a bit conscious about themselves, and we keep questioning ourselves, right? Okay, will I be able to do it or not, right? So how to control that anxiety, how to keep calm in such situations?
Yeah, that was totally the boat I was in. I had taken it the first time, and the first time I took it, I completely lost track of time. I got hung up on one question, and then this was on Quant, and then the whole test kind of, there was a point where I was like, okay, it's done. I'm not gonna get the score that I want, and I started panicking. I would say going into the second test, or at least, I don't know if this is advice for everyone, but for someone like me that's like a very anxious person, that you've studied, you've diligently done everything. But I would say one of the big things in the test to remember is that it's as much an emotional and strategic experience as it is a skill-based experience. So go in there with the right mindset. Whatever it is you have to do the morning of, I would say definitely have a routine 2 weeks before the test and do that. If your test is at 8 a.m., wake up at 5:30 or 5 a.m. for the 2 weeks before. If your test is in the evening, for 2 weeks, study around that time just to,
Be
make
in
your
that
brain,
momentum. Yeah.
yeah, get that momentum. Um, Eat healthy. If exercising is something that's de-stressing, do that. Don't start anything new just the day before the test. What you want your test day to look like, try and do that at least 1 week or 2 weeks before the test. That was very helpful for me. And then just going into the test, being relaxed and knowing, okay, I have to play the long game. I'm not getting hung up on one question. If I don't know it, it's not a reflection of my smartness or anything. What I need to do is the 3 minute mark is done. If I'm nowhere close to getting the answer, I need to move on. And, just from it, after practicing, you kind of familiarize yourself with the type of questions. Like, so just if you know that
Do
if you're
not.
comfortable with it, you're not comfortable with that. So even if you're not, it's totally okay. That's something that I didn't internalize the first time. And I was like, if I don't get it, then the whole test is gone. But that's not the case. Yeah, it's designed so that you might not get some questions. So that's totally fine. Just move on. I think that was a big one for me. And then one thing that so I took some tutoring from GMATWhiz,
Mhm,
and my one thing that my quant tutor
mhm.
told me, Shabakar, he said, take the take the test like take the mark like it's a test and take the test like it's a mark.
Mark.
Because I had
Right.
very high anxiety, and that would really like affect me in the before the first test. Also in my marks, I was getting the score that I wanted, and then I panicked the test day and I didn't get the score that I wanted the first time. Second time I went into it thinking, I know everything, I'm relaxed, I've done this in the marks so many times, I just need to do the same thing.
Great.
So long story short, don't panic. Have a good routine 2 weeks before, and just be confident. Even if you're not confident, fake it. Just fake confidence. That's what I did, and it worked out fine.
That sounds good. So these points, no, in fact, these are some points that we actually, miss on to because we are too much, we get ourselves involved in too much of the preparation side of GMAT that we lose touch on our own personality, right? And GMAT, and many people do not realize this, but GMAT is not only an exam of academics, right, or your critical reasoning, but it is also a test of checking how well you can maintain your composure, how well you can maintain your calm in situations which are stressful, right? Because you are going to be a global manager after some time, because that's the reason you're pursuing for GMAT, right? And situations are going to be tense at some point of time. So you should know how to maintain that. And that's the ideology, because you see, whenever you perform right, the bars are raised for you, right? So whenever you get
Yeah.
into the market, whenever you thrive more, the competition increases, right? The stress increases, that zeal increases, your team size increases. So it's more like, um, um, a mirage that you're facing, right? So we need to realize that a touch on the preparation is almost as important as it is a touch on our own personality, right? So we should never lose that. And thanks for such kind words, such informative session, Aryamika. So
So,
finally, we are there with a 740 score. So
yeah.
which schools are you applying to, Aryamika?
Yeah, I am planning to apply to a few schools. I'm planning to
Mm-hmm,
apply to Columbia Business School,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Yale, MIT,
mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm.
Wharton. Those are the ones that are on my list at the moment. I might add a few more that might be reach schools, but you have one shot, so why not apply to all the schools that you want to apply to? So
Definitely.
if I have the time, I'll apply to more schools.
And you do have a great story. So people, if you are not aware, Aryamika also is an entrepreneur. Let's hear from her, from Aryamika herself. Yeah, Aryamika, yes.
course. Thank you. So basically in everything I do, I kind of focus on impact. That's what drew me to GMATWhiz. I was like, how can I put in the least amount of work and gain the most impact? And that's something that I definitely got from GMATWhiz, something that I see in my personal life, my academic life, my professional life. And that
Mm-hmm,
kind of drew me to
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
starting this company called My Business Card, which is a digital business card company. It's for young professionals, entrepreneurs, anyone looking to network right now with like COVID and everything. There's so much uncertainty, and we needed like a safe and affordable way to network, even virtually. Like we're doing a meeting on Zoom, but how do you share a business card on Zoom?
Zoom.
So I started this digital business card company where you can have all of your information, all of your links to your LinkedIn, your website, everything, and just on a little thing on your phone, and you can share it with the link. You can share it with the QR code. So that is something that was really important to me as a young professional, building my network, building my career. And I wanted to build that. There was no solution for that. So I started this, and please go check out the app on the App Store. It's called My Business Card with MI, and it's free to download, free to use. If not, you can also scan this QR code, and that will take you to my personal business card, and you can find the link to the app here. So thank you for letting me share my story, and I hope this was useful for you. If you're someone like me building your professional career, please check out the app. I think it will be useful too.
So thanks for sharing that news, Aryamika. Definitely gonna check out that post this
Thank
session.
you.
Right.
Amazing.
Yeah. So thank you, Aryamika, and thank you everybody for watching this video. But and also great thanks to Aryamika for joining on this, us in this session and taking out time from a busy schedule. Thanks a lot, Aryamika,
Of
and all
course.
the
Thank you
best.
so much. Thank you
All the best
to
for your
Gina.
future endeavors. Sure. Definitely. You're welcome. Great. Bye, Aryamika. Thank you.
Bye.